So, a couple things happened this week that most of the industry is sleeping on, in my opinion. One is the Federal Reserve's January minutes. There was a specific detail that should change how you're managing your pipeline heading into the spring. It wasn't the headline. It wasn't the Fed holds rates part. That's what everybody knew. But there was something hidden inside the minutes that got buried. The second is a federal courtroom ruling in New York that looks like a real estate legal update and is actually a window into the most important structural battle that we have going on in this industry right now. So let's get into both of them. All right, quick note before we get into it. I'm actually recording this on Friday the 20th rather than the typical Sunday drop. This weekend's going to be a lot of fun. I'm getting out and going hiking with llamas and then going to nourish my body in a mineral bath in Hot Springs, North Carolina. So I figured the very last thing anybody needs is to see me dropping the signal from a mineral bath with no shirt on. Guys, we've got to keep it kid friendly. So you're going to get this a little bit early. So same deal as always. I pull this data together every single week because I have to stay close to what's going on for my day-to-day job. I started sharing this because I'm doing the work anyways, and I might as well bring you along. All right, let's get into it. So the Federal Reserve held rates at this past January meeting. Everybody knew that. That's what was expected. That's old news. But what wasn't old news was what the minutes revealed when they dropped this past Wednesday. The committee is divided in a way that the market, I don't think, has fully priced in. Some members didn't want to hold. Some raised the possibility of rate hikes if inflation remains to stay stubborn. There were two voting members, Waller and Mirren, that actually wanted to get away from the hold, wanting a cut. So the language describing the forward path is genuinely uncertain. It's not patient, but it's confident. Then we have Jerome Powell. His term ends in May. A new chair is coming in, and while the front runners of the seat they lean fairly dovish. The Fed chair is simply one of 12 voting members, not the whole story. Then we got the futures market. They are pricing the next cut in June at the absolute earliest. Fannie Mae's forecast has rates somewhere around 6% throughout most of 26 and into 2027. So here's why this matters for your business specifically. A lot of agents are out there. I still hear it all the time. They're managing their pipelines around the assumption that there's some sort of magical rate relief coming soon, and the next Fed cut will be the catalyst to somehow get hesitant buyers off the sideline. Guys, the realistic expectation right now is that rates will continue to hover somewhere around 6% for most of the year. And here's the thing, at 6%, the NAR Housing Affordability Index is at 116.5, which is the best reading since March of 2022. The math for buying is already better than it's been in 4 years. The Fed cut that you've been waiting for to make your case isn't what's going to move qualified buyers. Something else is holding them back, and that's what I want to spend a little bit of time on here today. All right, so on February 6th, a federal judge in New York denied Compass's request to block Zillow from enforcing its listing access standards. Here's the quick background in case you've been hiding under a rock. Zillow announced a policy last year that any listing that has been publicly marketed outside of the MLS for more than one business day simply won't appear on Zillow, period, full stop. Well, that's a problem for Compass. So Compass, which just completed its acquisition of Anywhere, is now the world's largest brokerage, and they sued Zillow claiming that this was an antitrust violation. They asked the court to block this policy while the lawsuit plays out, and the judge said, no. Compass's stock dropped by 13% instantly. The CEO of Compass said that the lawsuit isn't over, and guys, it isn't. The full antitrust case continues, but Zillow's policy will stand for now. So the practical reality for agents today is this. If you're running a private marketing strategy where a home is publicly promoted before it hits the MLS, Zillow's not going to carry that listing. And guys, you better be honest with your sellers about that. They need to know what's going on. You better tell them before they ask, because that's the quickest way to get that listing canceled. But here's the bigger picture. The bigger picture is what I actually want you to sit with a little bit. And this is just my opinion, right? But Compass is building a vertically integrated machine, private listing network, brokerage relationship, buyer's introduction, and of course, financing on the back end. The private listing strategy is not a marketing tactic hear me on this. It is not a marketing tactic. It is the consumer entry point for a platform play, right? So if buyers find their homes on Compass's private network first, Compass owns the relationship before anyone else gets involved. This is not to help the consumer, okay? Let's be straight about that. And then you got Zillow on the other hand. They are enforcing its listing policy because its entire business model depends on being where the buyers go first, right? Every listing that bypasses Zillow is a consumer relationship they don't get to monetize, or from an agent's perspective, a pocket they don't get to put their hand in. Guys, both companies are fighting over who controls the consumers. Agents are the very channel that both of them want to either get around or monetize. We have to acknowledge that. Neither care about the agent, and neither, in my opinion, is here to help the consumer. This is a power play from both brands. All right, so here's the thread that I'm going to tie all this together for you. The Housing Affordability Index is at its best level since March of 2022. All right. Mortgage rates are near a 3-year low. Wages have been growing faster than home prices. The math for buying is better than it's been for years for those that are actually positioned to act. NAR's own chief economist said this week that improving affordability conditions have yet to induce more buying activity. We all see that. We all feel that. That's not a small contradiction. In my opinion, that's a pretty meaningful signal to what we need to be paying attention to and what we need to be focusing on. The buyers who aren't acting right now aren't necessarily being priced out. A lot of them can't afford the house payment. They're sitting on the sidelines because the broader world feels unstable and it feels heavy. I get that. And that is giving them permission to wait even when their individual math or scenario says that they shouldn't. As you've heard me say a million times before, guys, this is a confidence problem. This is not a cost problem any longer. We've got to stop with that narrative. And those two things, though, they require completely different responses from us as professionals. If someone can't afford to buy at today's rates, guys, there is no conversation that's going to fix that, I'm sorry to say. But if someone is qualified, they can make the payment, they do have the down payment, and they're hesitating because the macro environment feels uncertain, that's a person that a real conversation can get through to. You've got to walk them through their specific situation. What is actually the cost of waiting another 6 months if the spring inventory starts to compress? What are they actually waiting for, and whether that thing is coming? Guys, we've got to have those conversations. We've got to separate what's true in the news from what's true in their financial life. That's not a sales tactic, okay? That's what a trusted advisor does. And right now, sadly, there are not enough agents that are doing that very clearly. The spring setup is real. The conditions are there, and the agents who capture the volume that is coming won't be the ones who waited for the feds to make their case. All right, so here's where I land. Here is the hill I stand upon. The Fed minutes revealed a divided committee that's actually more uncertain than the market even assumed. You have got to build your spring strategy around rates being near 6%, not around what cuts may or may not come. That's not pessimism. The affordability math is actually quite good right now. We've got to work with what's real, not whatever bull crap's in the news right now. Now, the Compass Zillow battle is the industry's biggest structural story right now. The immediate practical advice: know what your listing strategy means for platform visibility and tell your sellers the truth. The longer view: the agents with the strongest direct relationships are the least exposed to whatever these giants are fighting over right now. And the confidence gap, the disconnect between where affordability is and where buyer behavior is, that's where the real work needs to happen this spring. The qualified buyers who haven't acted yet are your market, period, full stop. The conversation that reaches them isn't about rates. It's about clarity. I do this work every single week because staying sharp is just simply part of the gig. If the way I think about things lands and you want to have a conversation, please feel free to reach out, drop a comment, hit me up in the DMs, whatever you want to do. But for now, I'm going to go figure out how the heck a llama is going to help me hike this mountain for like 3 hours. I'm Charles Boyette. I'll see you next week.